The art of living your best life through the codes of creation, the seen and the unseen worlds can be a fascinating journey in living your best life. The world seen is perceptible through the five senses, while the unseen world can't be experienced by our senses because it transcends the 3D world. The Balinese believe the seen world, Sekala, and the unseen world, Niskala, are interconnected, and that everything in the physical world is because of its counterpart in the unseen world. Everything is energy, and therefore has frequencies and wave patterns. Just because you can't see it doesn't mean it's not there. The 3D world of matter consists of wider, slower frequency waves visible to the human eye. We receive and perceive this information through our sensory body. If we take a slow frequency wave and shift it to the speed of light, we move from the 3D world of matter to the fourth and fifth dimensions of higher frequency. Essentially, life exists at varying frequencies, with higher frequencies being superior. Angels and lightworkers operate in higher frequency fields. To be seen, they must lower their frequency pattern. We can learn to work with frequency patterns in everyday life, so they automatically resonate with our environment, body, mind, and spirit, promoting healing, harmony, and balance. This is the art of living your best life and deepening your connection with the universe. Valeria interviews Mary Jane Casliner. She is the author of Mother Nature, A Bridge to Conscious Living. Mary Jane Casliner has dedicated her life to helping others improve their health and well-being. She started her professional life as a respiratory therapist and dental hygienist before she shifted her path into metaphysics in 2002. For the past 23 years, Mary Jane has helped people improve their lives through various techniques, including yoga, pranayama, astrology, feng shui, and her signature program, The Art of Living Your Best Life Through Codes of Creation. Her approach is simple: to unify and amplify energy frequency patterns of the three-tier temples we all have. The law of resonance is a major player in the amplification process, utilizing sacred form in movement, quantum-level mindset models, meditations. The power of nature's bit language, signs, and symbols has profound implications on how we experience life. Mary Jane knows this firsthand when she turned her life around after a divorce that left her with her home in foreclosure and a 2-year-old child to raise. Mary Jane is the author of 9 books, 2 online coaching programs, and DIY Power of Attraction and Design. She has been a guest speaker on the Steve Adubato TV show and Lasting Lifestyles. Mary Jane's sole mission is to help others live life from their highest self, which creates a holographic effect that impacts the world. Meet Mary Jane at mjcasliner.com/trainings. Here's the interview with Mary Jane Casliner.
Aloha, everyone. This is another Quest for Wellbeing podcast interview, and my guest today is Mary Jane Casliner. She is a metaphysical lifestyle master, author, yoga teacher, certified classical feng shui consultant, dowser, 4 pillars: astrology, vinyasa yoga, yin yoga, chakra therapy, meditation founder, and registered trademark owner of Codes of Creation and Movement. Mary Jane has dedicated her life to helping others improve their health and well-being. She started her professional life as a respiratory therapist and dental hygienist before she shifted her path into metaphysics in 2002. So this is my brief introduction to you, Mary Jane. The question that I love asking my guests, all of them, pretty much all of them, after this brief introduction is, how would you introduce yourself? Who are you in this very moment, in your own words?
Well, that's a very interesting question. And before I answer it, I would just like to take a moment to thank you for
Okay.
inviting me on your podcast.
Mm,
And I would also like to thank your audience for taking the time to tune in.
yes. Thank you.
You're welcome. So, really interesting question. And you know what? It's
Uh,
tricky too, because I think the tendency is for all of us to label ourselves with a
mm,
title, a
right.
role. And you know what? Unfortunately, I believe that when we do that, it dims the light of who we
Mm,
truly are.
mm,
And as a
yeah.
yoga teacher, and you, I'm sure, can understand this, I have this discussion often with my yogis that when
Yeah.
we do wear all these different hats,
Mm,
that it really gets in the way. It's like a veil as to
right. Yes.
right, as to
Yeah.
who we
Yeah.
truly are. And I think about,
Uh-huh.
Patanjali, that great ancient yogic sage, who
Yes.
talks about the thousand heads of the cosmic serpent, right? And that's all about
Mm,
the
mm,
different pathways to consciousness. So when we're labeling ourselves, which we all kind of fall into that trap,
right.
I think it makes it more challenging to see those pathways, for us
Okay.
to reach a higher level of consciousness where
Mm,
infinite possibilities just open up. So
mm, mm,
now let's see. To answer that question, in
yeah.
this present moment, I am a seeker of spiritual knowledge in the
Mm,
physical 3D world, but also in the unseen world. So, like the
mm,
Balinese refer to this as the two worlds interacting. The seen
right.
world is Sekala, and the unseen is Niskala. And I really believe I have a natural ability to weave the information that I seek in the world of matter where we are, but also in higher dimensions. And I've
Mm,
used this information to heal and transform not only myself, my life,
right.
but the life of my clients and students. And, it's really interesting. You introduced me as in the beginning, I was a respiratory therapist and a dental hygienist. And
Yeah.
I can see that it's not a coincidence that I shifted from those fields into the world of metaphysics. And I really sought knowledge in these ancient disciplines like feng shui and astrology and
Yeah.
meditation and
Right.
yoga. And, as part of my training, when I look at my four pillars astrology chart, which I'm well versed in through my feng shui education, it's spelled out right there for me because I have a great amount of the earth element. And
Mm,
the earth is
mm,
considered the great transformer and healer.
right.
And if I look at my most inner pillar, which opens up later in life, so hopefully, I'm accruing some wisdom. I
Mm,
have this snake archetype, and the snake is all about intuition, wisdom, and transformation. And that intuition is what I believe opens up that I can tap into the higher dimensions to cultivate and seek um, that spiritual knowledge. So that's how I see myself right now in this moment.
right. Wow. There's a lot there to
Yeah.
unpack in a sense.
Right?
Oh, yes. How I would be here for the last probably 10 hours just to unpack that with my no questions. I better not even get started with that because I love the topic of the unseen, especially.
Yeah.
Of course, yeah, everything to me, it's very much the unseen being expressed in what we see. So it's not really, in a sense, everything is spiritual. So there's nothing
Yes.
that's not spiritual. Um, so for those who are not familiar with the concept of metaphysics, um, how would you put that in very simple words or terms? Um, I would love to hear perhaps an example or very simplified description of what metaphysics are or is?
Well, for me, I always bring it to where I have sought the interest, or where I was pulled, if you will, from a
Yeah.
higher voice. And I believe, for me, it is these ancient practices and disciplines that really get into a sense of meaning and purpose in our lives. These are practices that I have found, and how I explain the world of metaphysics, that really has a huge impact on how we experience our earthly journey, is that they dissolve these layers of fear, that kind of that wall that obstructs our true nature.
Yes.
So that, to me, is the world of metaphysics, and the studies that I was attracted to and continue to delve deep into, because I could see what these practices did for my life, and what sharing and explaining to my clients what it has done for their lives, because everything is based on energy, right?
Yes.
The whole universe is energy.
Right.
And if we really can just take a moment and fully grasp that the power behind energy is that it moves in all different frequency waves and patterns at different levels. And because of that, it becomes this dance. And this dance actually impacts how we are experiencing our life and actually spiritually developing. And, so many people would say, well, why is that? How can it improve my life, this energy stuff? And it's because it's based on scientific principles. I mean, it really is. It's based on a law known as the law of resonance. And I think what a lot of people who go towards the trend of manifesting really forget, or maybe are not familiar with, the law of resonance. That is the key player, because it's about when two similar energies begin to vibrate in the same tune.
Yeah.
Okay. And when that happens, there is a syncopation, there is a synergy. And when that synergy happens, there's an increase in that energy. So much so, it's an amplification that it surpasses the sum of the individual energies. So right there, that's like, wait a minute, whoa. Yeah. So it's like all this energy can be increased and amplified, and it's going to come back and determine how your perception is on this earthly journey. In every aspect, as part of the human family, we all share the same desires and life aspects.
Right.
Okay. It is a journey we all share. And what I find very interesting is that so many people, and I don't know if you come across this, but so many people are struggling out there. You talk about joy, right? So many
Yeah.
people are struggling to just even find joy. And, if you just present the question to someone, are you living your best life? Sometimes you get that kind of quick response like, yeah, I have no complaints. But that really is a question that you have to contemplate, because, as I mentioned, we have all these different aspects to our life journey.
Right.
So now you have to say, do you feel every aspect of your life is where you want it to be? And invariably then the response becomes, well, come to think of it, I wish, my relationship was better or whatever, the list can go on and on and on. And, I think I take two steps back and I say, it's kind of strange because in today's world, there's a plethora of information at our fingertips on how to improve your life, how to find joy, how to be happy, but so why are so many people struggling? And that's where I go back to, I believe that there is a missing link energetically that is connecting all the components necessary to live your best life.
Right.
Right? Do you come across that yourself?
Yes, I have a comment to make. And I want to mention that this is a program that you have, right, Mary Jane? So the art of living your best life through the codes of creation.
Yes.
So I have the link here, will be on the podcast notes at the end. The interview, the podcast notes, and also on any platforms on my website where
Wonderful.
the interview is. I just want to mention that here. So yes, I resonate with this idea of the concept of the law of resonance and energetic flow. Yes, a billion times to that. And I have been living my life pretty much the last 25 years. I'm 48 now. Yeah, 30 years kind of by this, you call it codes of creation. I love that. Codes
Yes.
of creation. Right?
And we'll speak to that because, I want to make sure everyone knows exactly what the codes of creation are, because it's really, really powerful when we talk about energy and vibration of energy, which I think is along the lines of discussing that you take the path in your own life to follow the flow of energy. And I would say to this, Valeria, that what you're following is the vibration frequency that is a good vibe. This is why it's drawing you, because as I said, everything is energy in the universe. But now we have to take two steps back and say, well, what kind of energy is it? Is it a high vibration frequency? That is a good vibe, right? And so other people, situations are attracted to this amplified energy field, because remember that law of resonance is going to increase that energy field. Okay. So we're going to get more of that coming towards us. Why? Because the law of attraction is a very close relative to the law of resonance. We can call them siblings. So, I think it's wonderful, and I applaud you that you follow that path. You're swinging on what I would like to say. You're going into the higher vibrations, which takes you into the higher dimensions. So you're actually following the spirit level. Okay. Right? Because now here's the thing. We live in a universe of polarities. So this law of resonance is also going to work with the polar opposite, or low vibration. So it's going to also amplify that. So whether it is good vibration of energy frequency pattern, or a problematic low vibration frequency pattern, it's going to be amplified, whether it's good or problematic. And this is how we begin to tap into, well, how are we perceiving, or how are we experiencing our life on this earthly plane? Because the lower vibration only hangs out in the 3D world of matter, that which we see, feel through our sensory body. It cannot exist in the higher frequency fields, the quantum layer, the fourth dimension, the fifth dimension, the spirit, where you're following. I can tell. And so these low vibrations, they equate to anxiety, fear, negative thoughts, illusion, the ego, right? And so it's a heavy energy. We've all experienced that. Right? We've experienced people that have heavy energy, and they really kind of suck and draw energy from ourselves,
Oh,
right?
yeah. Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So all of this becomes a key dynamic in terms of how our life is unfolding, because it's going to impact something what I refer to as the three tiers or temples that we all have. We all have, right?
Yeah.
And in my program, The Art of Living Your Best Life Through the Codes of Creation, the students actually learn how to manipulate energy fields. And it's very interesting, and be able to manipulate them to work through the three tiers or temples that we all have. So it's a dynamic of understanding everything is energy. And so if we break down then what these three tiers or temples are, we all get it. That first tier is what I define as the most external level. And that's going to include the land we live on. So very interesting. You're in Hawaii. And when we were chatting before we became live, you were just telling me how fabulous, right?
Yes. Yes.
So right there, I would say, wow, high vibration tier 1. So the land we live on,
Yes.
the
Beautiful.
structure we live in, the components in the structure, the people that we interface with on a daily basis.
Right.
All this is tier 1. Now, guess what? Tier 1 is going to interface with our own body biofield. That's our energy body. That's the chakras, the meridians, the nadis, our aura, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
So that communication now is going to influence tier 2, our second temple, which is our physical body.
Yeah.
So that's our body functions. It's how we experience health. And then that's going to influence tier 3, which is the mind and the spirit. So it's literally how we perceive our life, consciously, subconsciously, our thoughts, and ultimately spiritually. So the interesting thing is the energy patterns are constantly communicating with these 3 tiers 24/7, 365. There's no break in the action. And these 3 tiers are constantly interacting. And it's not necessarily that they are interacting as like it's got to go from tier 1 to 2 to 3. Oh no, it's a dance. It can go from 3 to 1, from 1 to 3, 2 to 3, 2. So it's a dance between the tiers and these energy patterns. And, your audience might be thinking, well, okay, but why is this even happening? And so this calls into account another principle, which is the macro microcosm. So I'm sure most people are familiar with the concept or the maxim, as above, so below, right? So this is really all about a relationship. What's occurring on the larger scale, the macrocosm, is reflected in the smaller, the microcosm. So literally, this is a Greek philosophy. Where is our place in the universe?
Right.
And essentially, as human beings, we're seen as the microcosm with the composition and the structure of the entire universe, the macrocosm. So literally, when you hear the phrase, the universe lies within, it really does. So the idea is to have harmony between the greater and the lesser, or the macrocosm, the microcosm. And so if we take that into context to everyday life, well, the macrocosm is that property, that land, that home. That's the macrocosm.
Right.
What is that energy, frequency, vibration? What's happening? What's amplifying? Is it a good vibration or is it a low frequency vibration? So, and in my program, the students learn how to manipulate these fields, the bio fields of the environment, of the body through these sacred tools and methods that come all together. And this can happen because of science, because we have something called the electromagnetic spectrum that gives us an actual visual, like, hey, these slow, wide waves, physical form, that what I can see, touch, feel, the whole sensory body system, what we experience, where we're kind of programmed to experience. Do you know what I mean? Not a lot of people, Valeria, can tune in to higher levels of, I keep coming back to what you said in the beginning, how you go through life. You follow the flow. You've been all over the world. You lived in so many dynamic places. That's wonderful. And that to me, again, says that you're following these energy patterns, which if we go on that spectrum, not only are these wide waves there, or what the Balinese refer to as Sekala, the world we see, but also Niskala, the unseen world. Okay. So these are these really fast vibration waves. So we'll take it at the spirit level, right? We can't see them with the physical eye, the human eye, but because we can't see it doesn't mean it's not there. I mean, not only do the Balinese say, hey, Sekala, Niskala, seen world, unseen world, they're interconnected, they work together, but physicists, scientists, they concur, and they do. And the beauty about this is that these faster waves of high vibration can shoot right through the slower waves. And what this means is that the increase of vibration frequency, when we increase it, when the students learn how to increase it on all three tiers or temples, we can entice any lower fields to realign to a higher frequency, right? Wow. So, let's say it. Life is a dance. Not every day are we going to be on this high frequency cloud. There's an ebb and flow. We all have the pity party day, right? But when you have the tools to know how to align the biofield of these patterns, then we can entice those low vibrations and bring it back up. So it becomes this beautiful dance. And again, where my students learn these specific strategies and applications, sacred movements, meditations, all in the quantum layer, shapes and forms. And we begin to manipulate that because, you know what? The goal is to live at a higher vibration, because that is how God designed us to be, so we could realize our full potential, right? Like I said, we all tend to be more programmed in the 3D world, but that's really a very myopic view. We can't forget that there's a spirit that resides within the temple or this physical body, right? So the divine essence is really about, hey, on this journey, you got to remember to do the dance between the planes, the dimensions, because that's who we are. Right. We are in both planes. So, the beauty of this then is I also bring in the codes of creation. And for those that may not be familiar, the universe is constructed by an intelligent design, and the specific purpose is to create. Create, right? Because everything is alive. It's vibrating, moving, evolving. Yes. So by its very nature, everything that is created must seek a higher expression of life, and that includes humanity. We must seek a higher vibration and spiritually evolve. So the codes of creation are basically a basis of what we call the 5 Platonic solids given to us by the theory of everything from Plato. And it's really about, the primordial chaos, or the primordial soup before there was matter. And depending upon what scientific philosophies you look at, that soup or void, from feng shui is called wuji, from the yogic philosophy, it's the sunya, and then how it evolves into matter. It's the yin, the yang, the interplay with the five elements, and then it creates what, the metaphor of Taoism is 10,000 things. From the yogic philosophy, the yang bit is Purusha and the yin is Prakruti, and the interplay, all things. So, in other words, the codes of creation takes that chaos into order. And specifically, this is where mathematics comes in. It's numbers. It's through the five Greek elements. It's through sacred geometry, triangle, square, and pentagon. But the whole dynamic here, why I infuse this, and it's part of the program title, is because the students learn all about these platonic solids, how to work with them, how to use the energy of them in sacred form, in movement, in biofield alignment, in their tier one, in meditations that are guided by me. So it's fascinating. I mean, we go through 6 modules. It's 26-week longs, and it's on this drip program that each lesson opens up at a specific week in time. So it gives the student ample time to digest material, right? There's over 60 videos narrated by myself, and it's just a fascinating journey, I like to say, through these codes of creation, because they have an extremely high vibration, and that is the goal, the sacred geometry. We are sacred geometry. Think about Vitruvian Man, right, by Leonardo da Vinci. I mean, that's sacred geometry to the nth degree. But if we even look at our DNA, there's actually a double stacking of the 12-sided platonic solid known as the dodecahedron. So all of this in my program is about imprinting these higher vibrations in all 3 tiers, right? Because we don't have to only imprint negative energy on us. I mean, as a yoga teacher, how many times do we talk about the samskaras and the imprinting and down into the fascial layers and so on and so forth, right? This is all about imprinting positive, high vibration energy, and it's a place that I actually begin in my program in tier 3, mindset models. Because it's essential to understand the patterns at the mind level. In the Bible, it says, set your mind and keep it on higher things, right? So, right, aren't you? When you follow that flow like you have, Valeria, I keep coming back to it because I love that whole joy that you bring into it, because you are following your joy. You're in Hawaii now, and it's like, wow, it's just amazing. But, when you follow that, it's part of this whole mindset, and so the students get to journey through to really understand, what is happening with this manifesting? Why is it pulling towards me? Because it really gets deep into the theta waves of the brain, and and I really guide them through these meditations on the quantum level. So the easiest way to get there is through meditation. And then from there, you can begin to build the vibration patterns, and these biofields begin to move outward. Like if you were to take a stone and skip it across a pond, you get these ripples that keep going almost into infinity, right? So the whole idea is to increase the vibration of our biofields on all 3 tiers. And as I said earlier, there is this dance between not only the energy, right, patterns, but also the tiers. So, if tier 3, you begin to modulate and move to these higher vibrations, all of a sudden you become extremely keen and aware of your surroundings. That's tier 1. Yeah. You also become very aware of, what am I putting in my body? What kind of foods? So you see how this is a beautiful dance. And to really secure that, almost, this is being mapped out in the ancient part of our brains known as the limbic system. through the golden egg that has three powerful glands, the pituitary, the pineal, and the hypothalamic. And this is an area where we perceive, where we have emotion, and our soul communicates to us through emotions. So when we can fine tune that, we can really tap into our soul's messages, which I believe comes back to that intuition, that sixth sense. You know, like you were talking about that earlier, right? Weren't you talking about that? How you're not, you were like, is it coming from somewhere higher? Or, you know, so yeah, it totally, totally does, in my opinion, right? So, you know, one of the other things besides the codes of creation and working with that and the environmental biofield adjustments, the sacred form and movement meditations is nature. Nature is one of the most powerful. It's just extremely powerful. And all of this, they act as a conduit to awaken these higher layers of intelligence for us to begin that imprinting power. You know, Einstein once said that the invisible fields of energy in nature unify in the natural world. Yeah. So, in essence, nature, and boy, do you live around some amazing nature, it's the gateway to higher levels of consciousness. It actually holds the language of the universe, something called a bit language, which the students do learn in my program. This is why we feel amazing when we're in nature.
Yes.
Right? Right? Or even just listening to nature sounds, you know, being near a waterfall, or even looking at landscapes of it. It could be just an image. These are very, very high frequency patterns, and this is why we feel good around it. And some of the greatest sages, poets, scientists, they understood this, they recognized it. Their greatest works were the result of the time they spent in nature. Leonardo da Vinci, Carl Jung, Lao Tzu, Confucius. I mean, all of them, right? Yeah. And this became the birth child of my third book, Mother Nature, A Bridge to Conscious Living.
Yes, beautiful.
Right? Yeah. So, you know, I found this to be extraordinary. My husband and I had taken a trip to the Pacific Northwest quite some time ago, actually. Goodness, let's see, that would be 14 years ago when I was 50. So I'm giving my age away here. But, so it was a 3-week trip. And in it, we did a lot of hiking in Olympic National Park. And so I had a goal, and my goal was to meditate in Olympic National Park and spend time with nature. And so I did. And I received amazing downloads, you know, from these powerful manifestations of nature. And I would journal after that. And in one of my meditations, it actually came through that this has to become a book. But, and I think I sent you a copy of it. So,
you did, yes.
Yeah. So you can see it's really simple, right? It's a very simple book. And, you know, there's, you know, chapters open up with a photograph that I would take, spending time with, let's say, water or mountain, or tree. And, you know, it's filled with simple activities and strategies, meditations, all these kind of simple things, and really fun. But also it's a journal. I mean, there's actually notebook pages in it, as you can see. And so you could actually, every day of the week, contemplate on statements that I received during my meditations with these powerful forces of nature. And so kind of fun too, because at the end of the book, not sure if you saw that you can plug in your birth data and find your nature number. And then you could go back to that chapter and reread it. But but also students in my program, they get an in-depth report of their nature number. So it's kind of fun, you know, it's kind of fun there. But so this is, you know, my program. And my goal is really just to assist others in expanding consciousness, beyond the physical. There's so much more. And to be able to move through these three tiers and gain a higher perspective and just harness the power to live our best lives. And if we do this collectively, which I know that's what you're doing there in Hawaii, we heal, we transform, we progress. And this becomes a journey where we can connect to the world of spirit. And there, this is, peace, love, harmony, kindness, abundance, right? So I think, our work gels as I, can see that.
Yes. Wow. There's again a lot there to unpack, and I think you are you are a very, very good educator,
Well, thank
teacher. I
you.
would say that's what it is. So you're very clear with the explanations and how you flow throughout this sort of complex, right, realm
Yeah.
of metaphysics, but you make it really simple, even in a sense of listening to your voice. It's very pleasant, so it feels like a guided meditation. So you're
Oh, thank
just kind
you.
of flowing with it. And I love it's the funny thing is, like I mentioned off record, a lot of times I interview a lot of people and I have lots of conversations in person here too with a lot of people. And I love listening. A lot of times people love talking because they need to express something. It's a need for them, or they have something to share that's important to them. And there's something when I'm listening that it's almost transcends the words. It's again, I think it goes back to what you mentioned about very much what's part of metaphysics, the principles. It's something that you can't see or cannot understand logically in that sense. There's something about the frequencies and the vibration of the sound of a voice that kind of really captures me in the moment. A lot of times I kind of focus more on that than what is being said, because that's transmitting something that's kind of almost like beneath the words. That's more
Yes.
important. It's a call. It's almost like a calling for me to be
Yes.
present to the frequencies, the vibrations of other humans in the way they express themselves. And I don't know if that's yeah, hopefully I'll be okay with that. Sometimes I miss some of the things that they are saying because I'm so kind of captured by the sound.
I think
Is,
that's fabulous. That's
is it?
that's
Yeah.
a real talent. And I believe that you work on
Uh-huh.
a higher level. That's why you're able
Mm,
to tap into those frequencies, in my opinion. I think you are
mhm.
surrounding
Yeah.
yourself with very high frequency fields. So
Right.
you can tap into that Niskala, that unseen,
Yeah.
dimension, and it comes through. Like you feel
Yeah.
it
Yes.
energetically. This
Yes.
is what,
That's it.
even the picture here I'm looking at with your hand on your heart, you feel it
Yeah.
right through the heart center, anihata, right? And it's just like, wow,
Yes.
it just really opens up and rises up. That's how I
Yeah.
just intuitively
Ah,
feel it.
yeah. Yeah. Thank you.
You're welcome.
For seeing that reflection. It's almost like you can only see what is in you, right,
Yeah.
Mary Jane, in a way. So you see here what is there. So that's really a playful thing too. Yes, yes, yeah. So I want to mention the website is mjcastliner.com/trainings,
Hmm.
but that will be clickable on the podcast notes, so you don't have to memorize for those listening to this. I also want to mention your other offerings, services. So astrology, living your best life, manifestation and design, yoga classes, heaven and earth yoga odyssey. Am I
Hmm.
pronouncing that correctly? And
That's actually a very similar program to the art of living your best life through the codes of creation, but it's geared to yoga teachers. So they receive 75 hours of continuing education. So it's
yeah.
a little bit more slanted in the sacred movements, for
Right.
yoga teachers. That's what that Odyssey program is.
Oh yeah, thank you for saying that because I was not sure. But then yeah, the program for everyone that everyone can access is the Art of Living Your Best Life through the Codes of Creation, and that's
Correct.
the link that I will be here on the podcast notes.
Very
I
good.
also mentioned that you have take the quiz that's find out how astrology can change your life.
Yes.
I've been always interested in astrology, but I don't know how to use it. I think that's the case for a lot of people, right? We don't know how to,
Yeah,
how to read the charts and all that.
right. And the quiz on my site there, it's very basic. So it is actually your nature number profile, which
Oh,
aligns to the
okay.
book, Mother Nature, A Bridge to
Yeah.
Conscious Living. So that
Mhm.
is based on the 9-star key astrology system.
Right.
I do that one, but the 4 pillars of astrology is a very in-depth system, and that's where I'm heavily trained in through with my classical feng shui education. So I
Right.
offer 2 different astrologies, but that quiz on my site aligns to the nature number profile, which anybody in the program will automatically get that.
I see. Yeah, it's in your book too. Gosh, I
Yes.
want to do that. Would love to do that. We're just looking at here. So again,
Yeah.
thank you for sending me the book. And
Yeah.
I didn't do that. That's fun. I want to do that. So
Yeah. Do
just mark
that.
it
It's fun.
and see what it is. I know that I just in your book, page 124, that's fire. So what can we learn from fire? That question. So clarity, be present, be joyful, love, power. So that is the funny thing about. I always thought that my sign I'm Aquarius, so that's an air sign, but that's astrology. Perhaps my nature number might be different then.
It could be. So that's Western
Oh,
astrology when you're talking about Aquarius. I studied
yeah.
Western astrology like a million years ago,
Oh
but
yes,
when
yes,
I got involved with feng shui, the four
yeah.
pillars worked much better because it works on the 5 Chinese elements that you work with
Uh,
acupuncture and Chinese medicine. So it's a better fit system in feng shui
uh,
versus the Western astrology. But yeah, there's so many different astrology systems. So, because you know why? We're just not one dynamic, right? We have
yeah.
all different kind of energy that's weaving through. So it
Mm.
becomes very interesting.
Yes, and that's why I love the idea of being open, like receptive, curious about, everything that can lead us to this to clarity of where we are and where we want to be. And this is one of my main, let's say, what I work with a lot, if it comes to when it comes to a concept of
Hmm.
it's courage, being courageous enough to question the mind, because I know the quality of the spirit is one of joy,
Yeah.
of course, awareness, but also there's Satchidananda. So it's
Hmm.
bliss. It's such a obvious to me and a lot of people who have done the work per se, spiritual work. So
Hmm.
we see that it's very clearly that joy, that bliss is part of our nature, essential. So it feels to me like it takes courage to do this work of
Yes.
everything that you're presenting here today. So it takes curiosity, being open to
Yes.
kind of dive into it, question the mind, of
Hmm.
course, when it says to us, with thoughts that we are not good enough, all the negativity and this and that. It takes courage, doesn't it, Mary Jane, to question all that and
Oh,
say no, yeah, that's not true. That's not real.
you know, it does. And I want to ask you a question.
Mm.
Um, when you were a young child, a young girl, was
Yeah.
there anything then that you can look back and say,
Mm.
aha, I knew when I was a child that
Mm.
this is where I am today? Like it makes sense. Like you can make that link.
Yes.
Okay, because
Yeah.
I'm curious, because it's the same for me. I'm just
Oh, yes.
wondering, like, was there something
Mm.
like I know when I was a kid, I
Mm.
was a tomboy and everything, so I always liked
Yeah.
being outside, 4 brothers, the whole bit. But
Yeah.
I loved astronomy. I loved looking up at the stars. I
Mm,
loved the earth. I loved digging for stones. I had a rock collection. I loved my stones, you know.
yeah.
And I just loved
Huh,
nature, being
huh.
outside. So it's really funny because I ended up as a respiratory therapist and dental hygienist.
Mm,
But I'll tell you
mm,
why. Because,
mm,
growing up on the East Coast, and, I'm 64 years old now. So going back
mm,
then, this is what you did. You did something like, oh, go be a nurse, go do this, what have you.
right, right,
There was no
right.
such, like, I never heard of feng shui or whatever. There was no
Mm,
such thing. If I grew up in California, where it's a little bit more progressive and forward and open minded that way, maybe. But
mm,
so it's very, very interesting because it came full circle for me.
mm, yeah.
Right. So then all of a sudden it was almost like the universe knocking, saying,
Mm, mm, mm,
like,
yeah.
this is why I believe I was, pulled into this seeking of these very ancient disciplines.
Mm,
So
yeah.
I was wondering if you had the same kind of experience that you could look back at your
Mm,
childhood and said, yeah, I'm here today in Hawaii doing
mm,
what I
mm,
do, discover joy and quest for
mm,
well-being because of
mm.
something in your childhood.
Mm. Yes, 1,000,000,000% to that. Yes, yes, yes. It's funny. Like, now I woke up today thinking about that. That thought of always going back. It's almost like an unlearning to really know or to tap into what we are, even
Mm,
kind of transcending the whole, the personality and titles and all that, labels. It's going back to what was there before everything was kind of the mind took over with all the information, the knowledge, the traumas, and you name it.
yeah.
So, yes, I was born into a place that was really beautiful, mountains in Brazil and nature and all. But my family, they were disconnected from their own true nature. So
Mm,
they were fighting all the time. My parents, my father was drinking, my mother was out of control, anxious and violent in many ways. So for me, at that
mm.
time, I remember as a child thinking, does it have to be this way? Why can't we get along? Life is so beautiful. And
Wow.
then I would try, whatever it took at the time with my limited kind of skills back then as a child to kind of do whatever it took to get along, to be, in harmony with them. But
Yeah.
of course, it was just not something that was meant to be because as you know, today, even people who go to therapy, it takes years and you have to be open. So my parents were not open to listen to their
Sure.
child. So
Sure.
it didn't happen, but that never left me. This,
Hmm.
why can we get along? Why can we just have fun together? Meaningful fun in the sense of understanding one another, working together. It goes back to harmony again.
Sure.
So my entire life has been a journey to return to that. Like, how can I create a life that I can have this beautiful, meaningful experience with others here?
And you're doing it.
Yeah, that's it. Isn't it funny? Yeah, it goes
Yeah.
back to that longing, yeah, the heartfelt
Yes.
longing, yeah, the heart.
Absolutely. They always say, when
Yeah.
people are struggling, they're not sure what they should even be doing in life, to
Mm,
go back and think about when you were a child and what brought
yes.
you joy. That's
Yeah.
what you're supposed to be doing.
Yeah, yeah. That's what brings me joy, right? Having these conversations here, meeting people where we can understand each other clearly and have this beautiful, meaningful, deep kind of, I call it worthwhile because,
Mm,
at the end, it has to be worth it. Like, oh, what was my life all about? It was about beautiful, deep, joyful connections. And I
beautiful.
can't help it. It's not enjoy when I keep kind of going back to this message of joy, being fit
Hmm.
for joy, it's not an individual thing. So it's a community thing. It's a family thing. Because it's holistic. We are not alone. Everything is
Yeah,
interconnected, and that's something that's proven. And it's very scientific too.
sure.
Spiritual and science they merge when it comes to the interconnectedness of life, and that's sacred
Absolutely.
geometry too.
Yeah,
So
all of it.
Right. So it's not about me being joy and happy, la la la, alone. No, it's that's why I'm just so. It's almost like being called uh, in a very inspiring and exciting way. Sometimes too exciting. I get too out of control with the oh my god, this thing, this vision, and I know like you have a different kind of brain, so you can kind of put everything. I can do that too, but for me it takes longer because I have to get past the excitement first. The jump and jump like a child. I'm
That's
like a
great.
kid. You
That's
have no
great.
idea.
That's great.
Yeah. So I gotta get kind of tame down, the fire per se, and then kind of go back to planning. And but even then, when I get too excited about something, a vision, then I can't help it. But it's
That's
still
okay.
I gotta have somebody else to talk about the pragmatic, the planning, the things, and I'm very good at that too. So like assigning
Hmm.
people there. I work with teams, so I kind of okay, you do this because you're good at it, and I do this because this is what I live for.
Well, that's great. So you know how to delegate and who
Yeah,
has the expertise in certain areas. That's brilliant. That's what you
right.
should do.
Right. I have been doing this with the Fit for Joy for Profit for 10 years. Not with the nonprofit. I don't think it's different. So I'm just kind of working this path of creating. I love the way you talk about creation throughout the
Yeah,
conversation. Creating
creating.
something that is more of
You
in
may
harmony, right?
That's
With
right.
our nature.
And you know what? You may have a lot of wood energy in your chart because wood is
Oh.
always about creating. I have a good amount of
Ah.
wood, so I always create. I
Mm.
had someone tell me once, like, all right, stop creating.
Yeah, at some point we have to stop creating
I
and
know.
what's the next one, Mary Jane? Where do we fall into in the sense of an element coming from wood creation? What tames that flow of creation? As
So
was that water or
the
earth?
water will fuel the wood, so it's going to make it
Oh
grow.
no.
Think about watering
Yeah.
your plants.
Oh no.
Fire will drain off some of that wood, and earth will
Um,
ground it. Wood
uh,
uproots the earth, so it'll kind of
yeah.
ground it and stabilize it. So, it's
Mm.
a dance.
Yeah, I love that. You see, because we are nature, right? We're not separate from nature. We're
That's
just
right.
nature itself, as you mentioned too. Thank you so much for this beautiful conversation. Guys, I went over, my team. Anyway,
Oh,
so I,
it
I
was
really,
fun.
yes, a lot of fun. I really appreciate your presence in this reality and the way you found your expression here, like
Thank
what
you.
aligns with your being. That's crucial for all of us. And
That's
thank you
right.
so much for passing this on. It's sacred work to me for that reason, that you're generous to give what you have learned. And this is it's something that's very close to my heart too, that we don't keep the wisdom, right, that we
Yes.
pass that on. So thank you for that, Mary
Thank
Jane.
you, Valeria.
So take good care of your beautiful self, and we'll talk soon. We'll be in touch again.
Thank you. You too.
Yeah. Bye for now.
Bye.
Thank you for listening. To learn more about Mary Jane Casliner and her work, please visit mjcasliner.com/trainings.